The American Montessori Society, in partnership with Nature's Classroom Institute, present the following environment program.
Hey everyone, it's Jordan again, here for another video in our Corona lesson series. Kind of being stranded and stuck out in these woods a little bit during this quarantine. I don't really have a whole lot of people to talk to other than these nice trees here. So I'd like to use this video to discuss a little bit about how trees communicate with each other. Trees communicating sounds insane, I know, but they actually have a very intricate system in which they do communicate with each other. And they do it in multiple ways as well. One way they do it is through their root system. So for example, these coastal redwoods here, they have a very shallow root system, meaning their roots are very close to the topsoil. So they grow outward, and when they come near another redwood root, they will reseed themselves, and they keep that distance between each other so they don't steal each other's nutrients or each other's water, things like that. Another example is through pheromones. So a pheromone is a scent that you release, whether you knowingly do it or unknowingly do it, and that scent helps to communicate with other animals or plants around you to some sort of message that you want to convey. For example, in the Pacific Northwest, so Washington, Oregon area, there is a large acacia forest. Now this forest is a national forest, so not a lot of human intervention, not a lot of hunting. So the deer are kind of free to roam and run around and be free. So the deer really like to eat the low-hanging leaves on these acacia trees because they have a sweet flavor. So as the deer eat all of the leaves on the acacia tree, the deer population flourishes. As the deer population grows, the acacia tree population diminishes. Once that population hits a low point, according to the forest and how the nature around it works, they release a pheromone. Once that pheromone has been released, the wind then picks it up and carries it downwind to all the other trees. Once that pheromone makes contact with all the other trees, the trees actually physically change the flavor of their leaves. And the deer population begin to eat the leaves, and it starts to taste bitter to them. So once the deer population stops eating the leaves, that population goes down, the acacia tree population goes up, and it's this constant tug-of-war population control between deer and the acacia trees. So redwoods also use a pheromone. A lot of coniferous trees, which are trees that produce pine cones, use a pheromone to talk about when they are going to drop their seed. So trees, most trees, however, are hermaphroditic. So that means they have both the male and female reproductive organs. So on a coastal redwood, the pine cone is the female reproductive organ, and these two little pollen spores here are what are known as the male reproductive organ. So once this is dropped, it will then just kind of sit there. They can lay dormant for up to 4, 5, 6 years even, on some trees even longer, until a pollen spore is picked up by wind or an animal or something and brought into the pine cone where it can then plant a tree. Now, again, they have both male and female reproductive organs, so why can't this one tree here drop both of them at the same time right next to each other and plant? Well, while that would be a short-term fix for a population problem amongst the trees here, it, however, limits their genetic diversity. So once the genetic diversity is limited, they can only go so far and produce so many plants before they can no longer reproduce at all. So in order to keep their genetic diversity widespread, they release a pheromone and they communicate with trees nearby. So that way, if this tree wants to drop its female reproductive organs for this year, then this tree will get that message and drop its male reproductive organs that year, just in order to keep the genetic diversity from staying too stagnant. All right, and that concludes this video. I hope you learned a little bit about how trees communicate. Again, I've been trying to communicate with these trees for a long time. Now, if only I could figure out a way to get them to talk back.
If you'd like to incorporate nature into your classroom, visit discovernci.org/curriculum to download a variety of activities you can do with your students.
The preceding program was produced in partnership with the American Montessori Society.